last class on Talmud, and then after Passover and when I return, we will continue with books of the Middle Ages with the Rambam, with Maimonides. Today, please make a note, we will not meet in the next few weeks. We will only meet on April 30th again. April 30th, okay? Week, yeah, 2 weeks after Passover, exactly. Okay. I also want to say that I want to dedicate today's lesson to the recovery of our dear friend Peter Alpert, who is, in the hospital now, and we pray for his refuah shlema, a speedy recovery. Peter always sits here, and when I visited him on Sunday, I told him, we're gonna miss you, and we pray for you that you get stronger and back here very quickly. Amen. And we're also sending Margie, who sits there, usually also a big chizuk, a big strength in her, great powers, but also at this difficult time, also sending her our supports and spirits. Okay, so what we have here. Oh wait, I'm not sharing the right document. Sorry, that's not good. This right one. No, this is not the right one. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I have the right one.
Yeah, that's what we have. Rabbi is a 16A.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I think I probably have the right. But okay, never mind. Okay, so we have a but I am sharing this, right? Do people see it on Zoom, right? No, I'm not sharing, sorry. Now I'm sharing. So we have a situation with that I thought it would be very interesting to read, which is about personalized halakha for rabbis, okay, which is very interesting phenomena in the literature, where the rabbis take some privilege to themselves, okay, and sees themselves as an elite class, okay. Not all rabbis do that. Most rabbis, don't accept that, but there's some that are very great scholars, or maybe they have some special circumstances, and they kind of try to elevate themselves above the rest. And it's an interesting phenomena, first of all, because it's not so positive when someone tries to do that. But so it's interesting that the Talmud and the Mishnah even report about it, right? So it's like the newspapers of back then. They reported on anything that happened, good or bad, okay? And the interesting thing that we'll see is also that there is kind of hidden criticism by the Talmud on those rabbis, okay? So there's not just that they're reporting on it, they're kind of also trying to make special circumstances or explain that maybe this is something that should not really happen in a certain situation. And we're going to see sort of their train of thought and how this happens. It's a little bit complicated because, maybe we could close. I think they're just passing by.
Loudly, it's pass over.
Right, but it could take some time till they pass. The Talmud passage we're here is from the tractate of Berakhot. We met that already when we talked about reading the Shema in the evening, and now we're talking about different practices of reading the Shema and when to read the Shema. I'm reminding everyone that reciting the Shema is one of the main obligations of a Jew. We're supposed to do it twice a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. Um, and it is sort of like it's sort of like very important because it means we are taking upon ourselves the mitzvot and God's presence and God being the one God. Okay, when we say, Shema Israel, hear, O Israel, our God is the God of Israel, is one God. Okay, that's our God, and that's sort of like been the saying all along that this is sort of like the testament that you are a Jew. It's something that you say when you're converting. It's like when you take the oath when you become a U.S. citizen, right? I pledge my allegiance to the flag. This is the Shema is exactly that, and you do it when you enter Judaism. You do it when you wake up and you go to sleep. So it's like surrounds you around the day. You're supposed to do it on your deathbed, okay, as well. But there's some exceptions. Sometimes you don't always say this. And this is, if you look at number one, okay, can you give me also page one, number one? The primary issue in this Mishnah is the requisite degree of concentration when reciting Shema. Okay, so if I'm reciting Shema now, and it's the most important verse, and we've opened a prayer book once or twice, right? We've seen it's pretty long. There's a lot of things to do. Can we concentrate properly throughout the entire services? Okay, don't tell anyone, but even your rabbi cannot always concentrate, especially when I'm facing you and everyone's coming in. I say hello to people and I'm trying to be friendly. And and I'm reciting prayers, and that's what we're all supposed to do. But sometimes someone would tap you on the shoulder and ask you how you're doing, how's your family doing, okay? And luckily enough, there's like enough prayers that you can concentrate on the different one, but not on the Shema. On the Shema, can't talk to anyone. On the Shema, you have to concentrate. What do we do on the Shema so we can concentrate? We cover our eyes, right? We either go like this, so our eyes are closed and nothing distracts us, or sometimes we do like we put three fingers like this, which is the shin of not the Shema, but the shin of Shaddai. Shaddai is the name of God, one of the names of gods. So we put the name of God sort of like on our eyes. So we kind of like have it on us when we say the Shema. We're literally accepting God as our God. So if you have to say the Shema and you have to concentrate, so now what do we do about laborers engaged in the work may recite Shema while standing atop the tree or atop the course of stones in a wall under construction, which they are not permitted to do for the Amidah prayer, which requires intent of the heart. Okay, so interesting. There is intent of the heart and there is concentration. So two separate things. I'm not going to go into that. That might be a different topic for one day to talk more about the distinction between that. But for reciting the Shema, if you are a laborer and you are standing on top of a tree, you are so well trained, you know exactly the work and everything, you are able to concentrate. If I would be doing that, I would not do that. But if I was stuck somehow on top of a tree, I would not be reciting the Shema. I would like yelling out for help. Okay. But if you know your business and you can concentrate, you could say the Shema.
Good question.
This is not the topic, though, that we're number two is really the topic that we are engaged with. Yes.
I was taught, I don't remember when, that when saying the Shema, you should, whether you are seated or whether you are standing, you should remain in whatever position you are in when you say the Shema.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to either sit down or when you lie down or when you're walking. Okay. you're not supposed to be standing while reciting the Shema. That's sort of like the rules. But yeah, but you're right. If you're in the middle of the walking, so you don't stop to stand or to sit down. You continue doing it as you were, as long as you can concentrate. So now number 2, the Mishnah continues, a groom is exempt from the recitation of Shema on the first night of his marriage, which was generally Wednesday night until Saturday night. If he has not taken action and consummated the marriage, as he is preoccupied by concerns related to consummation of the marriage. So here's a just in 2 sentences, there's like so many things we could talk about, okay? First of all, the assumption that if you're a groom, okay, you're exempt from the recitation of Shema. So they take this very seriously. Not everyone could recite the Shema. You need to concentrate. If I'm married, okay, first time, I'm a young man, okay, maybe 18, probably younger, okay? So I need now to be with this woman. I'm nervous. If I recite the Shema, it won't work. And the thing that needs to work is not the Shema, it's the other, okay, is the other part, okay? And I would be very preoccupied. And that starts from Wednesday to Saturday night. Why? Because weddings, and so this is interesting information, that weddings usually happened on a Wednesday night, okay? Which or on a Wednesday. Why? Okay, because if I sleep with the bride and she is not a virgin, okay, and I have a complaint, I could go to the court that meets on a Thursday, okay, and make my complaint, okay. Courts convened every Monday and Thursday. These are the days we also read from the Torah. Why? Because that's when the markets were open, okay? You don't want to go to the court on Monday. That would be too late. And if the wedding was on, let's say, Thursday, let's say the wedding was like on a Friday or on a Saturday, Shabbat would just, would not work. So usually you would do it on a Wednesday. Okay, so like the following morning, you would go to the court. But anyhow, that was an interesting, piece of information that they plugged in. And then now we come to the topic that I wanted to talk about today. The Mishnah relates that there was an incident where Rabban Gamliel, okay, one of the most famous rabbis of the time, and he was the president of the Sanhedrin, okay, the Jewish High Court. So he was the most, he was like the most distinguished person in the land of Israel at that time, Rabban Gamliel. He married a woman and recited the Shema, even on the first night. And his students said to him, didn't our teacher teach us that a groom is exempt from the recitation of Shema? You should be like the first one to show everyone the way. You should be a role model, not do the opposite, okay? You have taught us that you're not supposed to recite the Shema in a situation like this when you're a groom. How come you're the one who's doing this? And he answered them, nevertheless, I am not listening to you to refrain from the reciting the Shema, and in so doing, preclude myself from the acceptance of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven for even one moment. Okay, so he's like saying, oh, I understand. Okay, it's true that I said that, but that's like for the average people. I, okay, am a pious. I'm something, special. And I, okay, will not, preclude myself from the acceptance of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven for even one moment. I always, so it's like, it's more important than these earthly things of marriage, consummating the marriage, etc. Now we could look at it also in a positive way, and it's like, oh wow, good for him, okay. But it is problematic. We see that his statement and his action are problematic. And now we need to figure out what is the Mishnah trying to tell us. Are they trying to tell us that this is just for Rabban Gamliel, or is this for anyone that wants to take upon himself this practice? Is this why they brought this here? So that could bring up a question like that. Why do we need to hear about this even? They could have just stated the rule, and whatever happened with him happened with him. There's a reason why they brought this here. So we're going to try to figure this out in the Gemara, which would be on the next page, and number 3. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to bring a few more stories first of Rabban Gamliel, okay? But we do see here a very interesting practice. At the end of the day, we see an interesting practice that there is a possibility that you will recite Shema if you feel you have to accept the yoke of heaven, okay, God's yoke on you. So you will be able to recite the Shema, even though you're not supposed to. So we could be left kind of like with that. Okay, you have 2 options. If you're too busy in your mind, don't do it. But if you feel very pious and you want to do it, so do it. Maybe that's what the Mishnah is trying to tell us. And now we're going to see a few more stories of that sort. The Mishnah later on says something that might be a little bit contradicting to what we just read now. And it says, wait. Think I oh, okay. So number 3, the Mishnah. Wait, let me just move the text here. I'll read from here. The Mishnah relates another episode portraying unusual conduct by Rabban Gamliel. No, is that what you have? Yeah. He bathed on the first night after his wife died. Okay. What's the problem here? When someone passes away, you are in mourning, and a mourner is not supposed to bathe. Okay. If you have a quick shower or something like that, okay. But back then, they actually, bathing was something you don't go into the shower, get out. You go to the bathhouse. Okay, you warm up the water. You have a good time there. Okay, you kind of like indulge your body in the pleasures of the bathhouse. So his students, what? Yeah, like it's not exactly a mikveh. The mikveh might have been cold. This was like the bathhouse was actually warm water. Okay, so this wasn't a mikveh. This was like for pleasure.
So
they had bathhouses like the Romans. They had it. That's how they would bathe back then.
Okay, so there are other people there, and it's a social experience.
Maybe, yeah, that might be a possibility as well. His students said to him, "Have you not taught us, our teacher, that a mourner is prohibited to bathe?" Okay, you're not supposed to be doing things of pleasure. He answered them, I am not like other people. I am delicate. Okay, the word is istinus. Has that anyone ever heard the name istinus? I don't know if it's Greek or Latin. For me, not bathing causes actual physical distress, and even a mourner need not suffer physical distress as part of his mourning. So he has an interesting claim. Okay, he's saying, if I don't bathe, okay, I suffer. I feel so unclean, okay, and my body aches. Maybe maybe he had to warm up his body in a certain way, and he was in physical distress. And the mourner is already in a lot of pain. The mourner is in a lot of emotional pain. Okay, so if you add the physical pain, it's two things. First of all, you're adding to his pain, and there's no reason to do that. And you're also distracting him from the emotional pain and from grieving. So he's saying, okay, I am special in that regard. Is he saying, now the question appears again, is he saying this about himself, just me, Rabban Gamliel, or anyone that feels that pain, okay, is allowed to do it in that way? And we remember from last week, we said when the Mishnah talks about, I don't remember what it was last week, but we were like giving maybe the example of an ox. Like when we talk about an ox, is it about anything that has to do with damages? Right? We were talking about a talit, that you divide the talit. Is it just the talit, and we said that's just like an example to teach us about all monetary issues. So here the same is all issues that have to do with mourning. Okay, if I would be very discomforted, would I be able to do that? Okay, when we were mourning for my father, you're supposed to sit on a very low chair. Okay, when you're greeting people that come and to comfort you. Okay, but sometimes it's not always very comfortable, and you would be in more pain like that. So we sat on chairs that were easier to get up from and greet people in that sense, not to create more pain. So that's another question. And here comes another, number 4 comes another incident. Another exceptional incident is related, and when his slave, Tzvi, died, Rabban Gamliel accepted condolences for his death, as one would for a close family member. And his students said to him, have you not taught us, our teacher, that one does not accept condolences for the death of slaves? Okay, and Rabban Gamliel said to his students, my slave Tzvi is not like all the rest of the slaves. He was virtuous, and it is appropriate to accord him the same respect accorded to a family member. Okay, so that's very interesting. Okay, and we need more background to understand what's going on here. Okay, so people had slaves back then. That's not a surprise for any of us. And actually, the Torah tells us, right, that there's a Hebrew slave and there's a non-Hebrew slave. Okay, a Hebrew slave could be sold for a maximum of 6 years, and after the 6th year, you have to set him free. Okay, a non-Jewish slave, okay, is not obligated by the Torah. Okay, so he could sell himself for more than that, for as much as if he wants, right? Why would someone sell himself to be a slave? Because he lost his house or life circumstances or something unfortunate of that sort. Okay, and in that regard, okay, you would have to take care of yourself, slave. But the slave, okay, if it was a Hebrew slave, so then they would still be obligated to do all the mitzvot, all the commandments, because they're Jewish slave. They would have to celebrate Passover with you. They would have to do all these things. But if you're not a Jewish slave, okay, do you have to celebrate Passover? No. Okay. Do you have to observe the Sabbath? No. Okay. So also, if the slave passes away, okay, he's not like a family member, okay, so you don't have to sit shiva for him or have a Jewish burial if he's not a Jewish slave. But Rabban Gamliel is accepting condolences for his slave Tavi like he's a close family member. He had a very special relationship with this slave. So first of all, we understand that Tavi was not a Jewish slave, okay? He was a non-Jew, and he became very, very close with Rabban Gamliel, who's the head of the Sanhedrin, which is also a very interesting phenomena, right? To see those special relationships that they had. And I looked up the story of Tavi, okay, and he's mentioned a few times in the Talmud. There's a story about him coming into the sukkah, okay, and he also he put on tefillin, although he was not Jewish, and there were a few other things like that happened with Tavi, the slave. So it kind of like shows us that there was a special relationship between Rabban Gamliel and he was also very smart and educated slave. So the rabbis are confused. How can you accept condolences for someone who's a non-Jewish slave? Okay, so he tells them he was virtuous and he was like a family member. So what do we learn from this? Again, sometimes you could change the rules for special circumstances, even if someone's not Jewish. Okay, it's an interesting question, right? Even today, we're in the conservative movement, and I think we talked about it when we talked about mourning. Okay, do we sit shiva for like a non-Jewish member of the family, or could we say kaddish or something like that? And the answer is yes, you could do that if that's what you're not obligated, but you could do that if you feel that would help you in your mourning, etc. I would also say, you need to be careful. You kind of like need to also ask yourself, would the person that you are mourning for or saying kaddish for, would they agree? Okay, would they be okay with this? Okay, if you let's say if someone converted and they had a Catholic, family member, and would that family member be okay with them, saying a Jewish prayer or sitting shiva? Maybe they wouldn't. So you have to also, make some sense of this for yourself. But you are able to do that. Or do we see here again a different set of rules for Rabban Gamliel? It's just for him. What is the Mishnah trying to tell us with all these stories again and again? And here's one more. Okay, yeah.
Does this also reflect perhaps an ability to accept evolution and change within the religion when circumstances arise that are different than they were before?
I think this is that's a very good point. I think this is kind of like where the Gemara is going to go later on. We're still reciting parts of the Mishnah, and now in number 5 we start dealing Oh, the last one. No, actually, no, we're gonna skip number 5. We're gonna go to number 6. Okay. So now we're gonna try to deal with these things. So number 6, with regard to Rabban, oh wait, let me scroll here. They can follow us. With regard to Rabban Gamliel's bathing on the first night after the death of his wife, the Gemara asks, what is the reason that Rabban Gamliel did not practice the customs of mourning after his wife died? The Gemara answers, he holds that acute mourning, aninut, is in effect only on the day of the death itself. But acute mourning at night is only by rabbinic law, as it is written, and I will turn your feasts into mourning and all your songs into lamentation. I will bring sackcloth upon your loins and baldness upon every head, and I will make you like a mourner for an only child, and the end will be like a bitter day. Therefore, by Torah law, one's acute mourning is only during the day, like a bitter day in that verse we just read, while the acute mourning at night that follows is only rabbinic. And in the case of a delicate person, the sages did not issue a decree that one should afflict himself during the period of acute mourning. So, very interesting. So we have the Talmud is trying to give us a category for what happens with Rabban Gamliel. They're trying to explain to us, this is not a personal issue about Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel is kind of like hinting to us that there are two forms of acute mourning. When the person dies, okay, before burial, you are supposed to only deal with their burial. You're exempt from all the mitzvot, including reading the Shema. The Torah prohibits doing anything, including reading the Shema, during the day. The rabbis added later on to the Torah's prohibition on the day, they added also the nighttime. Okay? And if you remember, we learned that the things that are deoraita, the things that are from the Torah, have a stronger stand. They are the things that we have to follow, and the laws of the rabbis, if you remember, we said the Rabbanan, those are the things that have more flexibility, okay, because they were decreed by the rabbis. They were not decreed by the Torah. The things decreed by the Torah can't change any of it. Okay, the things decreed by the rabbis are easier to change when necessary. And here's a situation that we have a kind of like a two degree situation. First degree is the Torah situation during the day, the acute mourning during the day, which means you're not to do anything but to deal with the burial of the deceased. And in the evening, and usually in the evenings, they did not deal with the burial of people because it was nighttime. Everyone, there was no light. There was like everyone would retire to their home and wait till the morning time to continue doing whatever they were doing, right? So if you have acute mourning during that time, then you are not as obligated, because the rabbis only said, just so you don't kind of like underestimate, or for whatever reason, they wanted to say that you still have an acute mourning, but it's not like during the daytime. Do you understand? So by creating these two categories, they are basically telling us this is not a special case for Rabban Gamliel. Okay? That wasn't the story. The story was just two different categories that he went by. We need to understand his behavior not on a personal level, that he's like above everyone else or there's special laws for the rabbis. It's because this specific case had to do with acute mourning in the evening, and in the evening it was more permissible for someone who's not comfortable, not bathing, to do so. If it was in the day, of course, even Rabban Gamliel would not have bathed during the day, because that's the more severe degree of acute mourning. Okay, so they are creating a structure here. If you're following me, they are creating a structure which kind of like answers our question from before. What's going on here? Why does Rabban Gamliel have a special case? So they're like, no, he doesn't have a special case. Okay, they're trying to tone down that feeling that we might have had in the Mishnah. Like, that's not fair. Why do rabbis get, a different set of rules? They see it, that could be kind of like dangerous in a way, and they're trying to make more clear categories on where that would go. Okay, it's a very interesting way of the Talmud to override something that could come out wrong from the Mishnah. Okay, and it's also interesting to see that they are not doing it in a way that's confrontal. Okay, they could have said, Mishnah is just wrong. Okay, Rabban Gamliel is wrong. Okay, that you can't do it that way. You need to do it this way. They're trying to harmonize it so there's no conflict in that sense. The Talmud knows how to create conflict but if there's no reason to, if you could explain it in a way that's more harmonic, we would prefer doing it that way. Interesting way, right, to solve disputes. And now we're going to try to figure out the other part, so we're now in number 7. Okay. Let me move on here as well. We learned in our Mishnah that when his servant Tzvi died, Rabban Gamliel accepted condolences for him. Okay, so again, why does he have a special case that he could do that? The sages taught in the Berakhot, and now they're going to bring a different Berakhot, which is not a Mishnah, but it's a source that kind of like confronts the Mishnah. Okay, and how are they confronting it? They're saying for slaves and maid servants who die, one does not stand in a row of comforters to console the mourners, and one recites neither the blessing of the mourners nor the consolation of the mourners. So this contradicts what Rabban Gamliel did, that he was accepting mourners. Okay, you're not supposed to do it, dude. It says so very clearly in this Berakhot, in this other source. How could you have done this? And this is a way of the Mishnah of confronting an opinion that we see in the Mishnah. So the Talmud is like, wait, how could he do that? We have a different source that confronts him and says he cannot do it. And now we have to either explain the contradiction between them, or maybe explain them in a different way, maybe say they don't contradict, maybe they do contradict, but we have to solve this somehow. That would be number 9. An incident is related that when Rabbi Eliezer's maidservant died, his student entered to console him. Okay, so they are kind of like going in the way that, his maidservant, we know how close he was to his maidservant. Okay, let's go and console him. But what does he does? When he saw them approaching, he went up to the 2nd floor, and they went up after him. He went away. They came to console him, and he's like, oh, he went up to his bedroom or something. They followed him. He entered the gatehouse, and they entered after him. He's like, oh, what are they doing here? He ran away to the gatehouse, but they're after him. He entered the banquet hall, and they entered after him. So this continues again and again. Having seen them follow him everywhere, he said to them, it seems to me that you would be burnt by lukewarm water, meaning that you could take a hint, and when I went up to the second floor, you would understand that I did not wish to receive your consolation. Now I see that you're not even burnt by boiling hot water. Did I not teach you the following? For slaves and maidservants who die, one does not stand in a row of comforters to console the mourners, and one neither recites the blessing of the mourners, nor does he recite the consolation of the mourners, as the relationship between master and slave is not like a familial relationship. Rather, what does one say about them when they die? Just as we say to a person about his ox or donkey which died, may the omnipresent replenish your loss. So too do we say for one's slaves or maidservant who died, may the omnipresent replenish your loss. As the connection between a master and his slave is only financial in nature. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer comes from a very, very strict point of view. Okay, and he's like, even if I liked my maidservant, okay, I'm not willing to accept condolences for her because I follow the law, and the law says you can't do that. Okay, he's coming from a very legalistic point of view, and it might even be difficult for him. He might have wanted to accept condolences. He might have wanted to be consoled. The fact that the rabbis come to his home and they want to console him, they know him. They know he has a special relationship with her. And they was like, we know we're not supposed to, but let's do it anyhow because he probably feels so bad. Let's try to comfort him. And he's like, nope. Like he's like, he is concerned so much with the law and doing the right thing with the law that he's putting the issues of the heart aside, and he comes to even describe it in such a cynical way that when you lose a slave, okay, it's only a financial loss in nature.
That's not
Okay.
reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a reasonable statement.
Right. So it's not a reasonable statement. And I think that what happens here is that, and that will be in number 10, okay, because now the Talmud continues, and it was taught in another Baraita, one does not eulogize slaves and maidservants, again, but Rabbi Yossi says, if he was a virtuous servant, one recites over him a eulogy of sorts. Alas, a good and loyal man who enjoyed the fruits of his hard labor. And they said to him, if so, what praise have you left for a virtuous Jew? A Jewish person would be proud to be eulogized in that manner as well. Okay? So here comes the ultimate conclusion is yes, you're not supposed to eulogize slaves and maidservants. Okay, they're not family members. But if he was a virtuous servant, someone who was close to you, someone, they did a good job. They worked hard for you, and maybe you have developed a special relationship with them. Like Rabban Gamliel developed a special relationship with Tavi. They would used to talk. He wasn't Jewish, but he was interested in what Rabban Gamliel does. And he was with him maybe for 30, 40 years, who knows? So he got to really know everything that he needs to know. And he liked him so much. Or the maidservant of Rabbi Eliezer, that the rabbis came to console him because they knew how close they were. Okay? So sometimes not sometimes, almost all the time, they're special people. And then he would eulogize them in a beautiful way, like Rabbi Yossi says here. Okay? A good and loyal person was here, and he enjoyed the fruits of his hard labor. Okay? So there is an emotional way to eulogize. And then the Gemara is asking, yeah, but what are you going to say about a Jewish person? If you said nice things about someone like that, what's left to be said now about someone on a higher level, so to speak, who's Jewish? They're saying, you know what, a Jewish person would be really happy to be eulogized this way as well. Okay, so kind of like, don't do these separations, because in the issues, a matter of the heart, when you are close to a person, you're close to a person, and eulogizing a Jew, or eulogizing someone who was not Jewish but close to you, very close to you in heart, especially someone that worked with you, that worked for you for all these years. You need to go more with the matters of the heart here. So this again comes to take out that category so that there's something special with Rabban Gamliel. He is allowed to eulogize and he is allowed to be comforted. It's not just him. It's more a general rule. It's more of a common sense rule that could apply to anyone. So here we see again the smartness of the Talmud of making out of a story that could be maybe personalized, maybe making a more general rule, and also as Larry pointed out before, there's special circumstances that allow us to change the rules like they were here. Not in every situation, but especially here when you're talking about mourning and things of the heart and helping someone cope with loss and mourning, you're able to do that as well.
I just want
Yes.
Do we eulogize Jewish person who was a bad person?
That's a very good question. Do we eulogize someone who was very bad person? So first of all, you would when you eulogize someone, you only say the good things about them. You're not obligated to mention the bad things about them. Okay, you're actually not supposed to. Okay, so you would try to find at least one good thing about that person. Okay, but it's interesting that you don't always have to sit shiva for them. Okay, and sometimes you don't even eulogize them if they were like really very bad people. Okay, so you don't have to. Depends on how bad they were in that sense. If it's a parent of yours, okay, where you're obligated, the obligation to mourn for them is even harder. So they would say you might do just a minimum of 1 day. Okay, so you sit in the you sit maybe after the funeral, you sit, and then that's it. You don't have to sit anymore. If they were like a very evil person, or if they were very bad to you as a parent, or something of that sort. Yes.
People have animals and they're very they have an emotional connection with them. And when the animal dies, like a dog, is it okay to sit Shiva?
No, it's not okay to sit shiva for an animal. No, that's not that's not the custom. I've never heard of that.
So did this also bring up the subject of a rabbi who put himself above everybody else, and that there are many rabbis still today that do that?
So this is basically, that's a good question, because I think the repeating stories here of the Talmud trying to resolve the Mishnah is kind of like telling us, no, rabbis are not above anyone else. They have to follow the same rules. And all these stories where we thought the rabbi has a special circumstances, no, we solve them one by one, right? We kind of like saw, no, rabbis have to follow the same rules like everyone else.
If one had a personal problem, which rabbi would you choose to go to? It would be Rabbi Gamliel. That you see him more flexible. And also the third rabbi, you're certainly not the one who follows all the rules, only will do what's written.
So I think it's really more like the Talmud that makes it sound more flexible. Okay, because Rabban Gamliel wasn't very clear. Was he trying to say, he was like always, he kept saying, I have a special circumstance. It's about me. Okay. And he wasn't really considerate about maybe this special circumstance could apply for others. The Talmud is the one that says it will now apply for others. This is why we can't just stay with the Mishnah. We have to read the Talmud and the discussions that came after the Mishnah of hundreds of years of more and more rabbis contemplating these passages from the Mishnah and coming up with these conclusions. Okay. Yeah.
Isn't there a story, I don't know, was it Rabbi Akiva, where his wife supported him while he went away to study, and when he came back, all his followers were carrying him on their shoulders and screaming, he deliberately stopped at his house to give thanks to his wife, to show that
Right.
she was the one that was responsible for everything he had accomplished.
Yes, the rabbis knew how to give credit for or Rabbi Akiva knew how to give credit to his wife, who basically allowed him to go all these years and study Torah, kind of like neglect his his children, his wife, but at least he was able to give her credit at that time, okay, like realizing, whatever I've achieved is really thanks